My name is Jordan Wells. I'm 39 years old, and I was supposed to get married tomorrow. Not next month. Not next season. Tomorrow. The tux is steamed. The rings are in a velvet box. The flowers are probably already on the truck. Somewhere out there. People are rehearsing to smile and clap. And I'm sitting here, staring at the ugliest truth I've ever read off a phone screen. Before I tell you what happened, before I walk you through how a wedding turned into a quiet stage for revenge, I want you to think about this. Have you ever trusted someone so fully, so blindly, that when they betrayed you, it didn't break you? It clarified you? If you've lived that moment, the one where the lie isn't what hurts, but the months or years it took to see it, like, share, and drop a comment. Shout out to the real_rich wolf for opening up last week. Drop your name below for a chance to be mentioned in the next story. Subscribe for more stories that don't scream, they just stay with you. I found the messages at 11:47 p.m. They weren't buried or locked away, just sitting there in a thread between my fiancée, Tessa, and my best friend, Eli. He was supposed to be my best man, my brother in everything but DNA. The tone wasn't even romantic. It was worse. Casual. Familiar. The language of people who've stopped pretending there's anything wrong with what they're doing. Jokes about our honeymoon. Mentions of one more night before I'm off the market. It wasn't new. The timestamps stretched back 4 months. I sat there, phone in hand, heart nowhere to be found. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. What I did was start making a new guest list. One for a wedding that wouldn't end in a marriage, but in a message. By 1 a.m., I was wide awake, but no longer angry. Just focused. I opened the notes app on my phone and started listing names. Not for who was invited, but for who needed to know the truth. My parents. My sister. 2 of my close friends who'd flown in early. The officiant, a mentor of mine from college. My cousin, who worked sound for the venue. These weren't just guests anymore. They were my circle of trust. I called my sister first. She answered groggy. Jordan? Everything okay? No, I said, but it's going to be. I told her what I found. She didn't gasp. She didn't rage. She just said, what do you want to do? I want to go through with it. The wedding. I could hear her sit up. Not the wedding, I said. The moment. The walk. The vows. I want them to stand in front of everyone, thinking they're fooling me. I want everyone else to know exactly what they did, while they pretend to say forever. There was a long pause. Then, whatever you need. I'm with you. I made similar calls one by one. Every person I trusted responded the same way. Quiet support, no theatrics. By sunrise, there were 27 people who knew the truth. Guests turned witnesses. By mid-morning, the officiant revised the ceremony structure. We swapped out the standard vows for something personal. I asked him to give me the floor, to let me speak first. I printed the texts. Not screenshots. Printed. On paper. I slipped them into my suit pocket. Tessa and Eli still had no idea. I saw them later that day, giddy, glowing, probably thinking they'd gotten away with it. I smiled. I nodded. I hugged them both. It was the easiest acting I'd ever done, because it wasn't about pretending to be happy. It was about giving them the stage they thought they deserved, so they could fall right through it. The venue was perfect. Rows of white chairs, early summer sun filtering through sycamore trees, a soft breeze carrying just enough chill to keep the sweat off your back. The kind of day people pray for when they choose an outdoor ceremony. Tessa looked stunning. Ivory lace, minimal makeup, the kind of look you only wear when you think you've already won. Eli stood by the altar, smiling like he built it himself. And me? I stood there calm. My hands didn't shake. My throat didn't close. Because this wasn't grief anymore, it was precision. When the officiant called us to share our vows, Tessa went first. She pulled out a folded piece of paper. Her voice trembled, not from guilt, but from performance. She said I made her feel seen, that I was safe, steady, the one she'd choose again and again. Every word was layered in irony. I let her finish. The guests watched, holding back. My sister sat in the second row, eyes locked on me. My cousin had one hand resting on the soundboard. The officiant nodded subtly. Everyone who knew. It was my turn. I didn't pull out a note. I pulled out the printed messages. Before I read my vows, I said, I want to read something else. There was a pause, confusion on Tessa's face. Eli looked up from his shoes. I read her message from 2 weeks ago, sent at 11:13 p.m. You make me feel more alive than Jordan ever could. I hate pretending in his bed. Gasps. Shifting in chairs. Her eyes froze. I read his reply. Just a few more days. He's so clueless, it's almost sad. I folded the papers. Then I looked up and said, those aren't vows. But they're the truth. And that's what we're here for today, isn't it? Silence. Not a soul moved. Not even them. I turned to the officiant. Thank you for your time. There won't be a wedding today. Then I looked back at them. But there will be a lesson. And I walked away. I didn't cancel the reception. That was never the plan. The venue was paid for. The food was prepped. The band had already arrived. People had flown in from out of state, taken days off work, booked hotels. They came for a celebration. And I wasn't going to send them home empty-handed. I just changed what we were celebrating. Tessa didn't follow me down the aisle. She stayed frozen, bouquet clutched like a lifeline, Eli slowly sinking beside her like he'd forgotten how to stand. The guests rose in awkward confusion. Some of them clapped. Some left. Most stayed. By the time I made it to the reception tent, my sister had already told the caterer to serve the food. The DJ looked at me, waiting. I nodded. Music started. I took the mic. I know today didn't go how anyone expected. I said, it didn't go how I expected, either. But I'm still here. You're still here. And I've learned something important. The absence of lies is something worth toasting. Laughter. Then applause. Real. Warm. No pity. I didn't speak about her or Eli by name again. I didn't need to. The damage was already done. Not by me, but by their own hands. Tessa didn't show up to the reception. Neither did Eli. I heard later they left through the back gate. Some people said she was crying. Others said she was angry. I didn't care. Her story wasn't mine to hold anymore. What mattered was this. People stayed. People danced. People ate and toasted and hugged me like something had been won, not lost. Because something had. My self-respect. My voice. My clarity. That night, just before the reception wound down, I made one last announcement. I told everyone that the wedding fund, every dollar saved for a honeymoon that would never happen, will be donated to a women's shelter in Tessa's hometown. The same shelter she once mocked during an argument. They should just get jobs, she'd said. Why should we support women who make bad choices? The room fell silent. Then someone started clapping, and the rest followed. Not because it was revenge, but because it was right. The next morning, I woke up alone in what was supposed to be a honeymoon suite. The champagne had gone flat. The suit was draped over a chair. My tie still hung where I'd dropped it, not in frustration, but in relief. I made coffee, stepped on a balcony, and just breathed. No calls from Tessa. No apologies from Eli. Not that I expected them. People like that don't reach for repair. They run from reflection. But I wasn't interested in their words. I'd said everything that needed to be said. And more importantly, I'd said it with my head held high, in front of the very people who were supposed to witness our beginning. They'd witnessed something else instead. Not a wedding, but a man reclaiming himself in real time. Since then, I've received messages. Some from guests who thanked me for showing what grace looks like, others from strangers who heard about it later and said, "We did what most of us only dream of." It wasn't about revenge. It was about alignment. A year later, I'm living quietly, still designing landscapes, still building things that last. I haven't dated. I'm not rushing. I'm not afraid, either, because I didn't lose a bride. I lost a mask, and I've never felt more like myself. If this story reminded you that some goodbyes are gifts, share it. Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories about quiet strength, clean exits, and the kind of peace that doesn't need an apology to arrive. Thank you for listening.